What's up, guys? Welcome back to the Hoops and Stuff podcast. I'm your host, Isaac, and today we're going to be making our first podcast on NFL, and we're going to touch on the players who were franchise tagged. We've seen a lot of players get franchise tagged this past week, and first, let's start with the Cowboys tagging running back Tony Pollard. Could we see Ezekiel Elliott get released from his contract? We've seen him put up some solid numbers last year, but not as great as he's been in the past. Tony Pollard has really just stepped up for the Cowboys at that running back position. Last season, he had 1,007 yards with 9 touchdowns on 193 attempts and 5.2 yards per rush. Tony Pollard did leave their playoff game against the 49ers with a broken leg and a high ankle sprain. And my question is, could that affect his skill level? Could he not be performing at that same level that he was performing at before his injury? Because that is a really big injury for a player, especially a running back like that, where he's going to be running a lot, and that's really just going to affect how good he can play. I'm guessing. Next, the Raiders tagged running back Josh Jacobs. He had 1,653 yards and 12 touchdowns on 340 attempts and 4.9 yards per rush. The Raiders did lose their QB Derek Carr, so they might be more dependent on their running game this season unless they can find a good quarterback. Josh Jacobs did have a really good season last year, and he's just a solid running back to have. Also, the Jags tagged tight end Evan Ingram over their O lineman, Jawan Taylor. Evan Ingram was targeted 98 times and had 73 catches for 766 yards and 4 receiving touchdowns this past year. And Jawan Taylor is a solid young offensive lineman for the Jags, but could we see him go to a new team, or will he re-sign with the Jags in free agency? He is, like I said, he's a solid young offensive lineman. They really have to go for that. They really have to try to get him back. Evan Ingram is a solid player, definitely not his best year, but he did do pretty good after coming to the Jags from the Giants, where he was a one-time Pro Bowler. For our next tag, we see the Commanders tag defensive tackle Daron Payne. He made the Pro Bowl last season. He had 1 fumble recovery, he had 11.5 sacks, and he had a career high of 64 tackles this season, and 32, not 13, 32 of which were solo and 32 were assists. The Ravens finally tagged quarterback Lamar Jackson. Could we see a potential sign-and trade with Lamar Jackson, though? Because, in my opinion, Lamar definitely has no future with the Ravens. They haven't really built around him. They just expect Lamar to do all the work, and that's just really not going to work. He needs weapons to throw to. He needs a solid wide receiver to throw to, and he just doesn't have that in Baltimore. So the top 3 teams I could see him going to, and this is not going to be in order, like the top 3 teams that he fits with best in order, but top 3 teams I could see him go to is the Falcons, the Carolina Panthers, or the Commanders. All 3 of those teams need a quarterback. The Falcons just released Marcus Mariota. They do have Desmond Ridder as a backup, but he is still a young star. They still need to work on developing him. Carolina Panthers had all 4 of their quarterbacks get hurt last year. They had Sam Darnold get hurt. They had Baker Mayfield get hurt, who they released. And they had Matt Corral get hurt. And then they had their 4th string PJ Walker in for part of the season. And then the Commanders just released Carson Wentz off of a $26 million contract, which is insane because he's not that good. They have Taylor Heineke on their bench. So all 3 of those teams, like I said, could really use a solid quarterback like Lamar Jackson. And for our last tag, the Giants tagged running back Saquon Barkley. Saquon had an amazing season. He did not have any major injuries like he has had in the past. They did sign Daniel Jones to a 4-year, $160 million contract. So they didn't have to use their tag on him, which allowed them to use their tag for Saquon Barkley. Saquon Barkley did have a really good rookie season with the Giants, but since then he has been getting injured over and over again. But this year he seemed to stay pretty much injury free, and he was putting up solid numbers. The Chiefs are not going to tag their 4-time Pro Bowler offensive tackle Orlando Brown after completing his second season with the team. I could definitely see him potentially going to the Jets, the Bears, or possibly resigning with the Chiefs. Just because he didn't get franchise tag doesn't mean he's not going to be able to sign a contract with the Chiefs still. That just means that he is going to have to sign a longer contract, which he's still young, so he can sign a longer contract and not have to worry about that. Um, he he could fit in with the Jets and Bears though, so we could potentially see him move teams, which we like to see players move teams because it's just it gives it more like it gives us more entertainment, I guess you could say. Free agency does start on March 15th, so there's definitely going to be the next episode coming out soon on that. And we're just going to be talking about like the big pickups because we're going to see most of the like really good players go in the first couple of days. So I will be making a podcast on that, and you can see that next Sunday right here on the Hoops and Stuff channel. But that's going to be it for today's episode. If you watched the video to the end, comment NFL. And if you enjoyed this episode, leave a like and subscribe. Let me know if there's anything NBA or NFL related that you want me to talk about. I'll talk about anything NFL or NBA related. And let me know in the comments if you guys want me to do some MLB stuff during the MLB season, because I might do some MLB stuff. But yeah, like I said, just let me know in the comments. And thank you for watching.